Hello, everyone. My name is Iran Cuevas, and this is my adaptation of a primary source. So for my teaching philosophy, I want to start off by saying, of course, as an educator, we need to be acknowledging that every student of ours is going to have unique needs. And with that comes being adaptable, flexible, and accommodating to those who have different individual needs and acknowledging that not every classroom will be the same. And so with that comes you always being able to come up with different ways for students to learn. A big thing I'm wanting to have in my classrooms is critical thinking skills and facilitating group discussions. I think sometimes for students, they may not be used to critical thinking skills, especially if a teacher was kind of just fact-based and not so much thinking of why an event occurred, what these people were thinking, why these people did this, and um, what was the outcome of this event, and also just having these group discussions so students can enhance their knowledge and understand things from a different perspective, and that way I'm not the only one just teaching students, but they are able to form these groups and learn from their peers and hear out different opinions and perspectives again. And lastly, just honoring history, and with that comes inclusivity. I think it's very important for students to see a reflection of themselves in their classroom, especially in history, where students want to see representation and feel acknowledged and understand their background and feel like they are welcomed in our classroom, especially when we come from a diverse community. So the grade I wanted to focus on was fourth grade, and the content standard is discuss immigration and migration to California between 1850 and 1900, including the diverse composition of those who came, the countries of origin and their relative locations, and conflicts and accords among the diverse groups. And it also says the example, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which is what I'm actually focusing on for my primary source. So what I want students to learn from this essentially is one, just seeing the importance of historical documents, seeing how something preserved from almost a century ago can be so important to what we're learning and how it can contribute to our learning in such significant ways. And also just questioning why this happens. I want students to learn um, why people were being prohibited from entering the US. And with that is using historical comprehension skills, historical analysis skills, and historical interpretation skills. I want students to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the Chinese people and, question why they were entering and why they had to have such extensive documentation to prove they were eligible, and what the meaning of these acts and treaties were, as mentioned in the primary source I will be showing, and the importance of just learning about how immigration and migration to the US has played a significant role in the Chinese coming here for reasons of becoming a laborer. The the primary source I chose to use is this document from a man named Wang Gong. He is from China, and he was departing from San Francisco on June 30th, 1990. And to summarize this document, he was basically proving he was eligible to re-enter and leave the US because, as mentioned in here, there's a treaty or act, I believe, that was prohibiting Chinese from re-entering. But if they were a laborer, the U.S. agreed to allow them to re-enter. And, he was also expected to answer questions such as, his occupation, his weight, physical marks, like a scar on his eyebrow, something as small as that was expected in these documents. And so I just kind of condensed this long document as there was, a lot of jargon that students wouldn't understand. And something I want to focus on is port. I think port is so important to focus on because this is how the Chinese were able to get to and from China. They were either going straight from China to San Francisco port, or they were entering through ports in the East Coast or Mexico or Canada. And I think that's a very important vocabulary word to identify. I also want to cover, the agreement the US and China had, an act prohibiting Chinese laborers, what customs were, why they were so strict, and where San Francisco is, and the inspector's signature, just proving that they had such authority over Chinese laborers and could determine whether they would be able to enter or not. So some innovation and essential questions. Again, I want to be able to facilitate group discussion. So in this, I want to cover, I want students to read this on their own, and then as a group kind of highlight, just look at what I mentioned as in this previous slide, and kind of think about it and question the immigration and migration to and from China. Question why were people from China entering, and what these documents meant for them and why they needed them. And also just comparing the past to present, thinking, do we still have documents like this? And kind of being able to hint, we have passports, which grant us the ability to travel to different countries and prove our citizenship. Where this was also a way for people to prove that they're able to go to a country and back. And just to show that we still have these current documents. While they are now a bit more updated, such as having a passport card, people still had to do these things. And it kind of gets children to think about um, why we have these rules and why people immigrate and maybe migrate to the US. And also just being able to question why Wang Gong was returning and what he had to provide for the inspector to allow him to enter and re-enter. So some essential questions I want to ask, one I didn't add here because I didn't want it to look a bit wordy, but I did want to ask, what is a port and why were ports so significant during this time period? Why did they want to use ports to get to and from China and the US? Why did Gong present himself this way? Why was he having to have an extensive list of, descriptions of himself? What made the US not want Chinese laborers entering the country? Having students question why they were not able to enter. And then, do we currently have a form of identification like Wang Gong, as mentions the passports? And why were Chinese laborers wanting to come to California? You know, Especially since fourth grade focuses on California history, I think this is such a good question because it kind of goes to show how important this event was, especially in California history, where a certain group of people were migrating here for different reasons. But more specifically, in this case, a laborer was trying to re-enter and had to show documents. And in this lesson, I kind of just want students to be able to question why he had to provide this and why other people coming from China had to provide this and what it did for them. And in conclusion, I want to say, what have I learned from this class? What I've learned from this class is being able to think about history in a different way, I would say. I think that before this class, I truly did not think about how important it was. Not important, but I don't think I knew how to show students how important it is for them to have reliable sources. I don't ever recall being shown that in the fourth grade, but I do vividly remember learning about some of the things we've discussed in this course and looking back and thinking I was never taught how to find like reliable sources. I was never told. All I was told was Wikipedia is bad. Wikipedia is a no-no. That's all I was told. And from there, I just thought anything that's not Wikipedia is okay. And I think it's important for me to use what I've learned in this class and teach my students so that they're not only able to learn how to find reliable sources, but they find sources that are, credible and true, and they don't just find things that are opinion based. And also just I've learned how important it is to have students use historical comprehension and critical thinking skills. I feel like I honestly was thinking, what am I going to learn from this class? I questioned it, and I thought, when I'm a teacher, am I just going to be giving them facts and bore them? I would hope not. I want to learn how to make history more interesting, and I feel like this class and this lesson I've provided have helped me learn from that I can, and it is possible. It is possible to get students to really think and for themselves and not just give them facts. Okay, this is the Exclusion Act. This is why it happened. This is what Chinese people and the US citizens did, and that's it. I like that in this lesson, I was able to provide students with opportunities to think about the Chinese laborers and put themselves in their shoes and question why these documents were needed. And I hope to do that with other lessons in history in my future classrooms. Um, I think, again, another thing from this class was learning that in history, again, it's not so much about, again, learning the facts, but just learning why events occurred and being able to recognize that and use different historical skills, such as like thinking like a historian. And um, I really want my future students to look at history in a different way and feel represented, and also maybe see like, especially if I'm going to be working in a diverse community, like see what their ancestors had to go through. And I chose this because I learned about it in my California history course, and I thought it was so important. I never got to learn about it in the fourth grade. One thing I do remember learning about was the California missions, as we did discuss during this classroom. And honestly, I don't know. I remember always questioning how did everyone get here? Like, how did Mexican people get here? Because I'm Mexican. How did Chinese people get here? How did I know we learned about how African Americans got here through slavery, but I never questioned the backgrounds of others and how they got here because I just thought we just showed up one day, and that was it. And so I chose this lesson because I had just learned about it last year myself and thought it was so interesting and so significant. And I hope to be able to inspire you all to include this in your classroom and provide your students with this, either this primary source or another, of the extent Chinese laborers went just to prove that they were eligible to enter, the amount of questions they had to answer. Because this was just a small little part of this man's document. There was like 7 pages of questions, and the answers he had to specifically state. But that was the end of my discussion, my adaptation of primary source. I hope you all enjoyed that, and thank you so much for watching, and bye.